at the end, I have all these.
Yes.
Okay, I'm Heidi Ann, so
Hi,
I'm
Heidi. Nice to
speaker
meet you.
today.
I'm
Thanks.
Lizzie. Nice to meet you.
Is it Lizzie?
Lizzie.
Okay, nice to meet you guys. Thanks for being here and
You're
doing this.
welcome. So we're live streaming.
Yeah,
So
hopefully I
I'll
don't
send you the
mess
link.
up too much.
No, you're good.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to get us started so you can get on with the rest of your day.
And you guys can sit down if you want.
Good morning to my fellow volunteer as a senior vice commander of the American Legion Hayes Village Post 96. Post 96 has been serving our veterans and community since 1922 and is open to all military veterans who have served honorably and to all military personnel currently active duty. I served in the Marine Corps as an engineer officer from 1990 to 1999. If you are a veteran here today and you are not part of our American Legion post, I challenge you today to get involved. We can use a few more good men and women to serve as we celebrate our 100th anniversary in 2022. We are here today to remember and honor all who have served in the U.S. military since our country's founding. While Memorial Day is to remember those who died in service, Veterans Day, originally called Armistice Day, is to celebrate all veterans who answered the call to service and are here today. It is celebrated on November 11th, the day World War I ended in 1918, when a ceasefire agreement was signed at 11 a.m. In 1954, Congress passed a bill changing the name Armistice Day to Veterans Day, so all veterans were recognized. Armistice Day is still celebrated around the world in other countries. Not all veterans have seen war, but a common bond that all share is an oath in which they express their willingness to serve this nation. Whether they served out of the USA or here in Connecticut, their service helped to protect our citizens and nation. Perhaps most significant in preserving our way of life are the battles that America does not have to fight because of those who serve in the Coast Guard, the Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and Army. We can be secure at home here in the U.S. because we have brave warriors protecting us in the air, at sea, and on land. Their service and time away from home gives us each the gift of freedom to live in a free, democratic society. At this time, I would like to ask Major Sean Nolan to offer the invocation. Major Nolan is in the U.S. Army Reserves, currently the executive officer to the 334th Petroleum Support Battalion, and he is representing Calvary Fellowship Church that meets each Sunday at 10 a.m. inside Cantor High School.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Please pray with me. Father in heaven, we ask you to be with us as we celebrate Veterans Day. Help us to honor those members of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard who stepped forward and volunteered to serve and make a sacrifice to help keep our nation free. We know that you have said, unless the Lord guards the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. So we thank you for guarding our great nation and for using our veterans as mighty instruments to keep our nation free. And we ask you to add blessing to their lives and the lives of all those who support them. And we ask all these things in your mighty name, Lord God. Amen.
Thank you, Major Nolan, for being here today. Commanders of the Guards, call your unit to attention and present arms. Today, our national anthem will be sung by Declan Smith, a senior from Cantor High School.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Commander of the Guards, call your unit to order arms and stand down the colors. Thank you, Declan. We appreciate you doing that and being here for us today. I'd like to take a moment to recognize some people who have joined us today and who dedicatedly serve our town. And if I miss a few of you, I apologize. Mayor Sherry Cantor, Deputy Mayor Leon Davidoff, State Senator Derrick Slapp, our town manager Matt Hart, Ben Wenegard, Carol Banks, Chris Williams, our council-elect Alberto Cortez and Adrian Billings, and then also thank you Fire Chief Greg Priest and Police Chief Vernon Riddick for being here today, and I know there's others of you here as well. Jen Evans and Lizzie, thank you for being here today and recording today's event for our town, for those who may not be able to watch right now. Our guest speaker for today's ceremony is our very own town manager, Matt Hart. Matt is a veteran of the U.S. Army and the U.S. Army National Guard. He earned his bachelor's degree in political science from SUNY Potsdam, then went on to earn a master's in public affairs from UConn, as well as his law degree. He began his tenure at West Hartford's 9th town manager in July of 2017. He has helped to lead the organization through the course of the pandemic with a focus on public health and safety and providing resources to those most in need. He promotes a work environment that emphasizes teamwork, customer service, and innovation, as well as sustainability, equity, and inclusion. He assists the town council with setting goals for the future and developing sound fiscal strategies designed to address budgetary and operational needs. He recognized the importance of supporting the town's business community and is working to streamline processes and create opportunities for our businesses to grow and thrive. Previously, he served as town manager in Mansfield, Connecticut, where he played a critical role in the development of Store Center, a mixed-use new urbanism project located adjacent to the University of Connecticut's main campus. In addition, he has experience working in the private sector. He lives in West Hartford with his partner, Cara, and his 2 daughters. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Matthew Hart.
Thank you very much, Commander Mooney. It's always an interesting experience to hear people talk about you, you know? But thank you so much for those kind remarks. And I'd like to thank you all for attending today's commemoration. I know it means a lot to me and my fellow veterans that are here today. I would also like to dedicate my remarks today to my fellow soldier and friend, Army Master Sergeant Marshall Lowry. More about Marshall in a few minutes. I'd like to thank our mayor, town council, state representatives, our color guard and chaplain, Declan and Ethan, the members of the American Legion Haas Village Post 96, of which I am a proud member, and all of you for coming here today. The Hayes Village Post is entering its 100th year of service to our community. 100 years in 2022. Congratulations to all the members on this tremendous accomplishment. Some people confuse Memorial Day and Veterans Day. And as our good Commander Mooney pointed out, Memorial Day is intended to commemorate the memory and legacy of those who died in service, while the purpose of Veterans Day is to honor all of those who have served in our armed forces. And there are approximately 19 million living veterans in the U.S. today. I was fortunate to have served in peacetime, and I never saw combat. I enlisted out of a sense of duty, adventure, and, importantly, for the Army College Fund. The experience served me well, and the College Fund supported me all the way through my first year of law school and dramatically reduced my need to take on student loans. I enlisted as an infantryman in the 10th Mountain Division in January 1987, and I went off to Fort Benning, Georgia for basic and training. And Fort Benning was often referred to as the school for troubled young men. The 10th Mountain has a proud history dating back to World War II, where the division fought in the Alps. Some of those World War II veterans were quite accomplished skiers. Over 60 ski resorts have been founded, managed, or employed as head ski instructors, members of the original 10th Mountain Division. Perhaps you have seen some of the commemorative monuments and plaques in places like Stowe, Vermont, or at the summit of Mount Washington. I was part of what's called a cohort unit. All of us infantry privates enlisted and completed our basic training together at Fort Benning. And then we went off to Fort Drum in Watertown, New York, snow country, to form a new infantry battalion, the first of the 87th Infantry. At that point in time, the Army was in the process of converting Fort Drum from a reserve to an active duty post. It was there at Fort Drum where I met my friend Marshall. He was a quiet young man from the Carolinas and was very physically fit, former high school athlete. He was part of the scout platoon, responsible for conducting reconnaissance for our battalion, and he successfully completed Ranger School, which you may know is a very, very intense and demanding program. We had adjoining rooms in our old World War II barracks at Fort Drum before the post was upgraded. I left active duty in April of 1990, and I enlisted at that point in the New York Army National Guard, and I returned to college. At that point in time, I lost touch with Marshall and most of the others that I had served with. Some 20-odd years later, with the advent of Facebook and social media, many of us reconnected. I learned that Marshall had remained in upstate New York, close to Fort Drum, and was active in the Army Reserves, rising to the rank of Master Sergeant and spending 2 tours in Afghanistan where he was significantly injured by a roadside bomb. He was now suffering from, PTSD, but very, very active in the veterans community, lending support to a host of other veterans, particularly younger veterans, both men and women. Last Wednesday, November 4th, 3 days after his 53rd birthday, Marshall was found dead in his home. He was not living with family, but had his service dog, Brutus. His friends and the members of his veterans network are shocked and grieving his loss as he played such a significant role in their lives. I have not heard yet if a cause of death has been determined. But I know, and this is what I want to talk to you about today, and I'm sorry I get emotional about it, is that Marshall's story is not unique. Sadly, this scenario, a younger veteran dying before his or her time, has become all too common. So I think we are all familiar with the key issues. Approximately 22 veterans per day die by suicide. Thousands upon thousands struggle with serious health conditions, substance abuse, homelessness, and the ability to hold a job in the civilian workforce. Why is this? Why is this happening in the wealthiest nation in the world? I don't think that it's necessarily a lack of funding for the Veterans Administration, as the U.S. spends more money than any other nation in the world on veteran services. The VA's current budget is approximately $243 billion, second only to, you guessed it, the Department of Defense. Now, I think the systemic causes behind the challenges faced by our veterans community are much more complex. So what can we, as a society, do about this? What can we do? I certainly don't know all the answers. But what I would encourage us to do is to continue and support and enhance veteran services for those who need it most, especially for those who have been physically injured or who are dealing with substance abuse or mental health conditions such as PTSD. It may not necessarily be a question of more funding, but how those resources are allocated. More specifically, I believe it's critical that the VA continue to expand eligibility for disability and other benefits to include several veteran classes that have previously been denied these benefits. These groups include the Blue Water Navy veterans from the Vietnam era that are struggling with diseases caused by exposure to Agent Orange, as well as the veterans of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan whose cancer tumors could have been caused by their exposure to toxic chemicals and radiation. Other veteran groups that need benefits include those who received less than an honorable discharge. And I feel very strongly about this because they acted inappropriately as a result of PTSD or military sexual trauma, which is a significant issue. Veterans who were discharged based on their sexual orientation before the Pentagon changed its policy on the service of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals serving in the military, and members of the National Guard and Reserves who did not serve on active duty long enough to qualify for benefits. So let's encourage our state and federal representatives to champion these reforms. And I know we're very fortunate here in West Hartford and in Connecticut to have that support. For those of us who are employers, landlords, or educators, it's important to lend a veteran a helping hand and to show some level of patience and understanding. The civilian world that we live in is very different from the military structured environment. Know going into the relationship that the veteran may have a few things that they struggle with, but have patience in anticipation of a long-term return on your investment in that person. As Senator John Tester of Montana, the chair of the U.S. Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs, has very astutely observed, we do a great job making civilians into warriors, but we don't do as good a job making warriors into civilians. Let me repeat that. We do a great job making civilians into warriors, but we don't do as good a job making warriors into civilians. In closing, I would like to thank you. Thank you for your consideration of my comments, my suggestions. As a veteran, I sincerely appreciate it when you thank me for my service. I truly do. I will also be very grateful, internally grateful, if you are serious about helping my brothers and sisters in uniform with their transition to civilian life. Please remember my friend Marshall, Master Sergeant Lowry, his service to others and a life that ended too soon. He would not want us to feel sorry for him, but instead to do something to help others. There are many, many stories like Marshall's, too many, and only we can change that through a concerted effort. Thank you all for coming today and for being such an important part of our vibrant and diverse West Hartford community. God bless you all.
Thank you, Mr. Hart, for speaking on such an important topic. And I just want to say before we move forward, for those of you here today, if you are hurting or know someone who is hurting, please bring them forward to us. You can come talk to me afterwards. There are a lot of people here like Pat or Mo or Jeff. We're very approachable. We can help you seek out services and or support family members that might need service. So don't be afraid to do that. It's one big thing the Legion wants to be there for. I know all of the people that work in our town and our state feel the same. It's such an important topic. Our next speaker is Senator Derrick Slapp of the 5th State Senate District. Derrick serves 98,000 citizens from West Hartford and in the surrounding cities. Derrick makes his home here in West Hartford. He lectures at Sacred Heart University and has been a lecturer in political science at Yale University and an adjunct professor at Quinnipiac University, Central Connecticut State, Southern Connecticut State, and Eastern Connecticut State Universities. In 2017, he won an Archangel Award for his advocacy on behalf of people with disabilities. One of his most important goals is enacting an affordable, balanced, and sustainable biennial budget that meets the needs and demands voiced by a wide variety of Connecticut residents. He works across party lines to identify potential spending cuts and ways to make government more efficient whenever possible. Senator Slapp is also committed to fighting age discrimination in the hiring process by seeking to prohibit employers from inquiring about birth or graduation dates on employment applications. The bill has more than 24 co-sponsors and is supported by the Connecticut AARP. Recently, Derrick has sought to close the wage gap between men and women in Connecticut, arguing that different pay for the same work isn't only unfair, it's bad for working families, the economy, and for Connecticut's overall competitiveness. Derrick supports pay equity between men and women to protect employees and prospective employees from gender-based discrimination on wages and compensation. Senator Slapp earned his MBA from the UConn School of Business and bachelor's degrees in broadcast journalism and international relations from Syracuse University, where he graduated magna cum laude. You may recognize Derrick from TV. He was once a news anchor and reporter at NBC Connecticut from 1999 until 2004. Ladies and gentlemen, Senator Slapp.
Thank you. Thank you, Commander Mooney. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes. We did get both those bills passed. I'm very pleased to say that. I do want to acknowledge a few of my colleagues who are also here, Representative Exum, Representative Farrar, and Representative Gilchrist. So I do want to just give a shout out to them. Boy, our town manager, Matt Hart, gave such a powerful speech and remarks about how we can help our veterans, and I know I'm going to take that to heart, and we've done some things in the legislature, and I'll mention a few of those in just a moment. To do that, my remarks are going to focus in a little bit different focus here on what we can learn from our veterans. Absolutely, thank you. I'm going to get closer to the mic. This nation and many of us personally are being put to the test right now and have been put to the test. No problem. Both physically, with our mental health, financially. I think we're all feeling the stress right now. We're approaching 2 years of the pandemic. We see signs of frayed nerves, anxiety, depression, division, and even some fear. So how do we get to a better place? Well, the experiences and wisdom of our veterans can offer some valuable lessons for us as a nation and on an individual level as well. So I would propose that on this Veterans Day, we really reflect on the example of our veterans and see what we can learn from them. And I want to focus on 3 lessons I think we can learn from our veterans. To be sure, there are many more, but I think these 3 are especially poignant right now. First is dedication to each other. Dr. Stephen Rose, he's a mental health expert and a researcher, he writes, "Soldiers in combat don't take bullets for one another because they were instructed to do so by someone. They do it because of their passionate commitment to their unit." Dr. Rose continues, "In the military, members experience a high level of communal purpose. The sense of group identity is not simply symbolic. Members are not bound by flags, uniforms, or titles alone. It's what these things represent that matters. How you contribute to the larger group. Military group identity is about your role within a larger system where everyone depends on one another. We are the best version of ourselves," he writes, "when we connect our individual skills, values, and interests with something larger than ourselves. A sense of purpose is forged in the interaction between the individual and society." Veterans are committed to something bigger than themselves, and that creates a bond. People who have deep connection with each other and join together for a common goal not only get things done, they're happier. They feel less isolated, less alone. Connection matters, and it reminds us of our common humanity, our obligation to each other, and it can be more powerful than any mandate, and our veterans understand that. Second, change. Change is difficult, and we've all been through a lot of change recently. Our veterans live with change, and I think they can teach us a lot about adapting to change and thriving when faced with adversity and finding inner resilience. Because resilience, we know, is not just simply bouncing back from adversity or change, but it's finding strength through that change. There's a term in the military I've learned called strategic adaptability. Dr. Rose writes, "Although the military institution as a whole is anything but light and fluid, operational strategy for counterterrorism measures requires a high degree of strategic adaptability. That's critical for soldiers, of course, on the battlefield, and of course, Our veterans, even when they are embracing change in terms of being reassigned to a new base and their families have to pick up and move across the country. I am pleased that the legislature has recently passed legislation making it easier for veteran spouses to find employment and also easier for their children to adapt to new schools. It reflects the acknowledgement of their reality, right? That change is constant, and we see how our veterans embrace it. And they embrace that strategic adaptability. And the last thing I want to mention as far as lessons that I think we can learn from our veterans is that oftentimes they have a perspective that can transcend the banality of civilian life. Consider the veteran Brian Woods. He wrote a memoir called Unspoken Abandonment. And he said after experiencing the tragedy of war, his sense of what mattered in life was changed, was uprooted. He refers to the conversation of coworkers. He states, "I could not believe the kind of silly BS these people thought mattered in life. I couldn't believe I once thought the same things were important." One of my best friends in West Hartford is a neighbor of mine, and I met him just a few years ago. And he was commissioned, he's from Kansas, middle-class family. He was commissioned in the Marines after college because he felt blessed for the opportunities this country had provided him, and he wanted to give back. He served active duty for more than 10 years, including being deployed for a year in Afghanistan during a very challenging time. Now he's a civilian. He works at Pratt & Whitney in communications for military engines. And he is like so many of our veterans, so many of you. He values community, he adapts well to change, and he has a perspective about what really matters. I have, and my family has learned a lot from him, and I would say that we can all learn a lot from our veterans. So we should say thank you for your service. We should do everything that our town manager, Matt Hart, said in terms of helping our veterans, and we should also ask them, what lessons do you have for me? And I think we should be open to learning from our veterans, especially now. So thank you very much. I owe a debt of gratitude to all our veterans, and thank you for having me here today. God bless you.
The other way. The other way.
I can't do it because my hand's messed up. Keep going. I won't.
All right.
Thanks.
I won't put it as tight.
Yeah, no, I just... My carpal tunnel won't let me do that. Okay.
Thank you, Senator Slapp. I appreciate your comments. Our next speaker today is Mary Sherry Cantor, who has been serving West Hartford since 2004, and even earlier than that, but when she joined the town council, and she's entering her 6th year as mayor. Is that right? Yeah. Before that, she served as a CPA at PricewaterhouseCoopers and Cigna. She also served as a PTO president. She is a lifelong West Hartford resident. Some may describe Mayor Cantor as petite, but to me, she's the perfect height. She graduated magna cum laude from UConn School of Business after studying accounting. She is a member of the UConn Board of Trustees, the West Hartford Art League, and the American School for the Deaf. She is part of the West Hartford Rotary Club and is a tireless advocate for the elderly. She has been a liaison to the Senior Citizens Advisory Commission and spearheaded the reestablishment of the Seniors Job Bank and the growth of Independent Transportation Network. She's the proud mom of 4 adult boys and now also has a daughter-in-law. She is married to Michael, a patent attorney, and as a working mother, she understands the struggles of working families and the challenges that young adults face as they enter the workforce. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Sherry Cantor.
Thank you so much, Heidi Ann, for your leadership, for your friendship. We are so lucky to have you here. And I'm so, I really am inspired by you and your actions and your outreach. Mo, it's kind of weird to have you down there and not up here. I think every Veterans Day you've been the MC, and so I thank you for your leadership, your friendship, and the commitment you've made to the town of West Hartford. I am so moved by Matt's words. They are It is clear to me, working with Matt, that he is a man of service and that he is a veteran, and he brings many of the qualities that Derrick talked about, and that's why he was chosen in this job. And I think that's so important to talk about those strengths, the dedication and the teamwork that he has developed, the change that he has been able to incorporate, especially watching this very challenging year, and the perspective of sometimes I call him unflappable, where there's a lot of currents coming against us at times, and just the ability to rise above it in a way that is really, is really founded in perspective. And so, Derrick, thank you for outlining that, because it was really helpful to frame Matt in that way, and thank you. But when I walk into, and I want to thank all my colleagues for being here and all the residents for being here, it's really powerful to have the support on this Veterans Day, stepping in and supporting veterans and learning how we can do a better job in service to our country. When I walk into this space, the Connecticut Veterans Memorial, I'm always struck by the symbolism of all of its features. And this was really a labor of love, and veterans and civilians putting their time and resources into the careful planning of this memorial. I immediately feel, and I hope you do too, that we've entered a sacred space. This Veterans Memorial commemorates the history of all wars. The circular wall of peace is a timeline that is broken when our armed forces went into conflict, and the names of the West Hartford residents who gave their lives during that conflict are engraved on that section. Encircling these stones is a walkway comprising names of loved ones who served in any of the branches of service. These are men and women from all over the country who have served honorably in our armed forces. Some of the veterans may have since passed on, and some may be with us today. This memorial is a place that welcomes everyone. Those of us who did not serve in the armed forces can have a part in this memorial too, by remembering and honoring a special person who served with a paver containing his or her name, as I did with my grandfather, a World War I veteran. He actually entered the Army illegally at 17 years old and was shot in France. And my dad, a World War II veteran who served in the Army of Occupation in Germany and was served with pride and had so much respect for his fellow veterans. And his charities were to wounded veterans. That was always his cause. And I also will be honoring my nephew soon, who is currently serving in the Air Force, by adding his name. The open center space contains a special feature that we may not often think about. When this memorial was built in 2006, soils from all battlefields, cemeteries, and prisoner of war camps from around the world and waters from 7 oceans were combined with our Connecticut earth to bind the past with forever with the present. The outer circumference of the Walk of Remembrance forms a timeline of local and national historical events. This memorial is a special tribute to the spirit, sacrifice, and commitment of the American people to the common defense of our nation and the greater good of world peace and freedom. We all owe them our gratitude. In May of 2019, the town added a name of an enslaved man that we learned about from the Witness Stone Project, where students studied the history of people that were enslaved in West Hartford. Prue was enslaved by John Whitman. He died during the Revolutionary War at Fort Ticonderoga, and his name was added to the 26 West Hartford men who died during this war. There is a lot more to learn about enslaved people's service in the French and Indian Wars and the Revolutionary War. Some served as substitutes for their owners, relieving them of the duty of serving in the war. Others volunteered for their service, possibly providing them with a little more freedom than they had in their lives as being enslaved people. These African American men were listed in the military ranks right next to the white enlistees. They were not segregated like they were in the Civil War, World War I, and World War II. They also received the same pay as the white men of £4 per month. And as we honor and remember our veterans on this day, we can do more. It's similar to the messages that you've already heard, than thank them for our service to our country. We can take the time to truly listen to their stories as when they served, but also their stories of struggling today and maybe in a civilian world. We can support and appreciate their families. I see it firsthand. My nephew has 2 children. One with a is in a wheelchair, and the sacrifice that his families make are so significant. And without the support of their communities, it's really hard for them to make it by. So we can help to provide comfort and hope during difficult times. We can give to support organizations that support veterans, such as the Red Cross, that provides comfort kits for service members and veterans recovering at medical facilities, the Air Force AIDS Society, Disabled American Veterans, Operation Second Chance, and there are many more. It is never too late to show our gratitude and our appreciation. We can always honor and thank them by our own actions, being an example of what they fought so hard or served so hard to provide us. Being in this space, I do want to share a poem written by Vincent Strzelecki in loving memory of his uncle, Alfred Stemmerman. Vincent was one of the architects of this memorial. It is actually sort of a memorial poem, but I think it's important today. Remember me, a soldier's prayer. O loved ones, I am but a spirit now separated from you. By a moment's time and a little space, I was born of this earth which you now walk upon, precious earth, and was returned to this earth, precious earth. I endured the horrors of war until my fate found me. As you gaze upon the heavens, remember me, and embrace your cherished freedom always and forever. Amen. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for coming here to honor and remember our veterans. I hope this happens way more than 1 day or 2 days a year, that it takes a piece of you almost every day of the year. God bless our country, our state, the town of West Hartford, and to each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Cantor, and thank you for sharing about this memorial. It's such a beautiful place, and I know many of you have been standing for a long time, and if you're tired, please utilize the memorial as a place to rest, because I'm sure that the veterans that are memorialized here would be happy to provide you that sanctuary. The ceremonial laying of a wreath at a graveside or a memorial is practiced around the world. Heads of state, U.S. President, active military and veterans honor departed members of the armed forces or society by laying a wreath of flowers and greenery at the site. At this time, we will present a memorial wreath in honor of our brothers and sisters who are not here with us today. Commanders of the Guard, post colors and call your unit to attention. You're already at attention. Placing the memorial wreath are Jeff Linden and Justin Harrell, both of American Legion, Hayes Village, Post 96. Commanders of the Guards, call your units to present arms. Commander of the Guards, call your unit to order arms. Thank you, Jeff and Justin. I would like to call our post commander, Patrick Harrell, a Marine veteran, to share a few words. After graduating from Yukon, Pat served as an infantry platoon commander in Vietnam with the 26th Marines and the 1st Reconnaissance Battalion. The 26th was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation for extraordinary heroism in action against an armed enemy. Pat also holds an MBA from Hart. Ladies and gentlemen, Post Commander Pat Harrell.
Thank you, Heidi. honored guests, service veterans, fellow citizens. Thank you for joining us in this honored occasion. The American Legion was formed on the heels of the Great War, also known as the War to End All Wars. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. As you look around this memorial and you see the breaks, it's clear that the war to end all wars didn't happen. In fact, less than a generation from the Great War, a much more bloody and devastating war was fought. And we then had to use numerals to distinguish one from the other. The American Legion was formed in 1919, and a couple years ago they celebrated their centennial. Our post was formed in 1922, and today we are officially launching our March to 100, our centennial. And some of the posters you see here, this is the kind of stuff that you're going to see over the year for each of the engagements that have taken place. So we will commemorate 100 years of supporting our nation, our veterans, our community, and our youth. These are the 4 pillars of our foundation, of the American Legion's foundation worldwide. I'd like to talk a little bit about how we got our name. When the post was founded, 32 members had joined, all veterans from World War I. And in selecting fellow veterans to take the post's name, they took 2 West Hartford residents who gave their last full measure of devotion to the cause. Waldo Hayes and Francis Bellage. I'd like to tell you a little bit about each of them. Waldo Hayes grew up on Farmington Avenue. He went to Hall High School. He was a basketball player. He worked at Burnham's Grocery, if you remember that. I don't, but some people might. And he was a member of Troop B in the Armory. So he was a member of the National Guard before the war. And when the war broke out in 1917, when it was declared, he transferred from the National Guard to the Army. He was a machine gunner, and he was wounded in 1918 at the Battle of Chateau Thierry in France. That battle would be known as the Second Battle of the Marne by the Army and the French, and the Germans, I suppose. The Marines would know it as Belleau Wood. The American Expeditionary Force was made up of units from both the Marine Corps and the Army under the leadership of General John Blackjack Pershing. And they had recently come into France when they got to the town of Chateau Thierry. And the combatants that they were facing had been fighting in the trenches for 3 years. So the Germans felt that this newly trained, inexperienced group from America would be a piece of cake. So that battle was the German offensive to try to push the Americans out of the war. I'd like to bring you very quickly to what Waldo faced. This is a poem that I've titled, With the Regiment at the Marne. When the whistle blew, the first wave charged. I was in the second wave, waiting, trembling, hugging the muddy walls of the trench. The observer, a lad from Cambridge, whispered to the captain, "They're falling like flies." I wanted him to be quiet. All around me, men were praying, asking forgiveness for whatever they had done, whispering names, and many were in tears. I remember I stiffened when I saw the captain raise the whistle to his lips, and then the spittle when he blew. I lifted my eyes to the blue heaven and put my soul in the hands of God. And then I took off into the putrid air, hanging over no man's land. A nightmare I will never know. How I made it out and back. I can only recall the mangled flesh, the exposed bones, heads without faces, bodies without arms and legs, and the screaming and the fire, and the flesh and the so much bloodied flesh. And us swarming and swarming, the buzzing stayed in my head for years. Waldo would die from his wounds received just a few weeks before the armistice. His family expecting to get a telegram telling them that he was safe and coming home, instead got the "We regret to inform you" message from the Department of the Army. Francis Buckley Bellage. He grew up on his grandfather's farm in Oakwood Avenue, and he joined the Navy when war was declared, making rank quickly and rising to Seaman Second Class. And he was assigned to the battleship, the USS South Carolina. And it was in Philadelphia, preparing for the Atlantic crossing. And Francis was painting an anchor chain as part of his task, and that chain broke and crushed him. He died in that Philadelphia Naval Hospital on September 11th, 1917. So he was the first West Hartford resident to give his life in World War I. I want to share, we don't have much on Francis, but I want to share a letter that came to his parents from one of his shipmates. Dear friends, although fully cognizant of the feebleness of words to heal the deep wounds and sorrow caused by your recent bereavement, it may be of some comfort to you to know of the high esteem in which his memory is held by his former shipmates. His manly bearing and many sterling qualities commended at once the admiration and the loving comradeship of all who knew him. I have talked with many of his scattered comrades, and all feel deeply sorrowful that an all-wise providence has decreed that so noble and likable a comrade should pass to the great beyond. His memory shall stay with us and remain with us as a standard to be looked upon. Again, assuring you of the heartfelt sympathy of his many comrades and myself in our mutual loss, I remain very sincerely yours, George Wardinsky, former gunner's mate. Why did I tell you about these two? Primarily because they're who we take our post name from. But the other reason is I want you to note that while Waldo lost his life on the battlefield, the life that was given by Francis was no less significant. And I think the American Legion recognized that on their 100th anniversary by altering the bylaws of membership to include anyone who has been in the service, regardless of what the era was. Prior to 2019, you had to have been in the service during one of the war years in order to apply for membership in the Legion. And what the Legion and people that put in that bylaw forgot, that those peace years took place because of the vigilance and the dedication of those who served in those years. And thank you.
Thank you, Pat. I would like to thank our color guard units, the West Hartford Police Color Guard under the command of Lieutenant Eric Rushlow, and the West Hartford Fire Department Color Guard under the command of Lieutenant Ryan Shea. Having served in a color guard, I know it's not easy to stand up here and look so amazing like they have been this whole hour. Thank you guys for your service, and thank you each for what you guys do each day serving our town. It's very similar to those of us who served a short time in the military. You guys are giving your lives every day for us, and we really appreciate your service. Today is an important but symbolic way of saying thank you and remembering the legacy of all veterans because of what these women and men have done for us. Saying thank you is an acknowledgement of all the burdens and scars that veterans may live with every day of the year. The fellow veterans they may have lost, the sacrifices they made, and the countless ways their lives were changed forever. This Connecticut Veterans Memorial, West Hartford, will forever honor those from West Hartford who made the supreme sacrifice, as well as all who have served our nation. I will now invite Major Sean Nolan again to come up from the Calvary Fellowship Church to offer us a benediction.
Please join me once again in prayer. Lord God, we thank you for protecting and prospering our great nation by your mighty power and the efforts of our service members whom we honor today. We ask your continued protection on this country and our whole world. For those service members who suffer from visible and invisible wounds received in the performance of their duties, we ask you to bring them healing and comfort, and to show all of us how we can be part of supporting them. May the United States, by your great power, continue to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. And we ask all these in your mighty name, Lord God. Amen.
Thank you, Major Nolan. Commander of the Guards, call your unit to present arms. Taps will now be rendered by Ethan Striffcave. He is a junior at Hall High School. Commander of the Guards, call your unit to order arms. Thank you, Ethan. On this Veterans Day, we especially honor the men and women who stand ready each day to fulfill their mission and are on active duty today. But I also want to honor those who didn't get a chance to answer the military call, but may have served at home or served our country in other ways, as they had the heart of a veteran. If you were a spouse to a military member, you did serve, and you should also be honored as well. As each of you here go through your week, I want you to think how you can serve your country, your community, your schools, and your youth. If you are not volunteering your time in some way, consider taking up arms and doing that. I call each one of you here today to action, as our community can benefit from your service. May God bless each of you for being here today to honor many of our American heroes that stand here among us and who have kept our country free. May God bless and protect our servicemen and women who are in harm's way and defending our freedoms at this very moment all around the world. And finally, may God bless the United States of America. Thank you for joining us today.
Where's your church? I actually attend Calvary Fellowship, and we meet in Connor High School. The building at our church office is on Boulevard.
Clear. Clear? Okay. I was going to say, I don't know if you turned the mic down. I did. I know. That's what, I switched it because it was like, are you the manual church or something like that? I'm like, oh.